Good morning. It is the entire next week. I filmed that little montage when I got in early last Tuesday, actually. And then the whole week was just kind of chaotic and very busy, so I just didn't turn on the camera at all. So 1 week later, we are back at work. I am doing some ordering before I have to do some processing later on. It's only 11, so this is just my admin hour. But yeah, I wanted to discuss Lote because I finished it this morning and I hated it. No, just kidding. Just kidding. This is not my copy, but I just wanted to once again admire the beautiful, oh, you know what? Let's get a little fancy here. And there we have it. Just that cover is just magnificent. But anyways, yes, I finished it this morning. It took me about a week and a half to get through, not because I was not enjoying myself, but I found the writing to be quite decadent, and it just took me a second to chew through it all. I'm really glad that I took my time with it because I think it was written in the way that it was very much on purpose, because the essence of the book, or the subject matter at hand, is quite decadent and rich, and it was kind of cool to see how the author very intentionally wanted the writing to parallel the subject matter, like I said. And yeah, I just thought that was really well done. I learned so many new words. That was partly why it took me so long to read, because literally every second sentence I had to look something up because I had no idea what that meant. I even started a little notes folder on my phone of these new words I was coming across for the first time. So anyway, the main plot, it's rather dark academia-esque. I had no idea what that term meant. Now I understand it. But it basically just means you're preoccupied or in the space of research and trying to use archives or the library, whatever, to uncover some sort of historical mystery, but done in a really intellectual kind of way. So Matilda is our main gal that we follow, and she has these what she calls fixations, and they are things that just really captivate her and take up all of her mental energy and efforts, and she just really throws herself into finding out more and immersing herself in the world of her fixation. So most of these fixations have to do with figures that were really prolific in the 1930s and 20s in Britain, and these bright young things, these people actually exist. But yeah, these bright young things are socialites, authors that are preoccupied with aesthetics, the beauty in the world, talking amongst one another in these literary, intellectual circles, and it's all very decadent and bohemian at the same time. But these spaces are all being occupied by wealthy white folks. And so that's the majority of Matilda's fixations, until she encounters a photograph. So she's researching, sorry, I got a package and then I got distracted. But anyways, I was saying that Matilda is volunteering at this portrait museum, and she is looking through the archives, and she encounters this photograph, and she's completely mesmerized and absorbed by what she sees. And at the center of this photograph, in one of these hedonistic parties that the bright young things would have, is this black, gorgeous woman, and she's just completely taken by it. So she ends up taking this image, and hence the blossoming of a new fixation of hers. And so this woman in the image leads her down this very exciting and layered journey that we follow Matilda through till the very end. What I found most interesting about this novel is the discussion around what we see and what is given importance in the artistic medium specifically Western art, and the things that we see in museums are often quite exclusionary and colonial in its root, really. And so the author is trying to highlight what has been purposefully kept away from the, in this case, the British artistic movement and the exclusion of Black figures. So I thought that was super interesting and really an informative read, because the author blends in fictionalized characters. Like this woman in the photograph is a fictionalized representation, but I guarantee you that, so yeah, like I was saying, there's plenty of examples of figures like Hermia that have been completely erased from the discourse. And I just thought that the discussions around the inherent racism that exists within the artistic world to be really compelling and an important story to tell. And just the mountain of archives and paintings and are dormant in the basement of, or storage facilities of, these museums all throughout Europe is probably astounding and just so devastating. But so yeah, I thought that was so cool and just such a, just important story to share. Another thing that I really loved reading about is the idea of escape as an embodied thing. So Tilda goes through, not before we know her in this book, she's gone through different selves, and she speaks of these different iterations of herself as escapes that she has had to do out of necessity, and shifting and shedding these layers and putting on a new mask. I thought was really cool and very well done in this novel. So yeah, a lot is happening. I don't want to spoil anything, and I hope I haven't tainted the reading experience, because it was just such an unusual read. Like I said, the language itself, just the way it's written, is quite unique, and yeah, just a very weird but gorgeous book. Yeah, it's weird, satirical, queer, layered, talks about colonialism, racism, cultural criticism. It was just so well done. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I will be thinking about this book for a while. Like I said, there was just a lot to digest, but yeah, thank you to Dee for bringing this to visibility, for me at least, because I'd never heard anyone else discuss it. Here's two just unique books and interesting stories that are so worthy of our time and such compelling reads. Hello. I have played with Boo Boo. He's looking at me like he wants attention. He's such a clingy baby, just like his mom. Look at him. Wait, let me flip you around. Hold on. Hi, baby. Yes, he's gotten a little chunkier. But this big boy needs his food. Isn't that right, Boo Boo? I just love his paws. Anyway. Yes. Oh, you're so cute. Oh. Big stretch. Does anyone else do that? Whenever their pet stretches, you just can't help but go big stretch. Maybe that's just me. Anyways, there's Boo Boo for you folks. My little kitty. Anyways, I wanted to introduce the book of the week. Well, not the book of the week, because I'll likely finish this in a couple days, but it is Split Tooth by Tanya Tagaq, and boy, oh boy, is this blowing me away. I have been really into Indigenous authors as of this month for some reason, like more than usual. I've had the pleasure of
encountering a couple Indigenous scholars through work that have just like ignited such just love for Indigenous ways of learning and thinking and just of existing in this world that I find really hopeful and beautiful. And yeah, I don't know, just the discussions I've been having with these two people in particular that I met through work were just so lovely and just fueled me with so much passion and love and made me just want to continue reading more Indigenous authors. So yeah, we're sticking with the theme. So I will discuss this in a little. I probably should have breakfast and change and then go to work and then we can discuss books. But last night on my way back from work, I made a little list of books that I have read / would like to read by Indigenous authors that I think I will share in case anyone else is interested and would like to dip their toes in, because the way that, at least the books that I have read recently, the way that Indigenous authors approach the page is unlike anything that I'd experienced before, and just such a unique way of storytelling that I just find so magical, for a lack of a less cringe word. But it really is just so magical. It's like medicine for some reason. I don't know. I just, something about it just gets me every time. And I know that I am not the intended audience. A lot of the books that I've been reading are by Indigenous folks for Indigenous folks. And I can only imagine how wonderful that must feel, because me, as somebody who has no attachment or no like lineage connecting me to like Indigenous people from Canada where I live, make me feel something so special. I can only imagine how much more special and wonderful it must feel if you are also Indigenous. So yeah, I don't know. I just figured I would share some of my favorites, and hopefully you will pick them up, especially if you are also kind of seeking and wanting just alternative literature that is quite different in form and in tone and subject matter than what you're used to. Then stick around.
So like I was mentioning this morning, I wanted to, and I actually got in early, which is perfect, because I really wanted to discuss a new interest, or I don't know, genre is a very limiting way of talking about it, but basically I've always been a lover of Indigenous literature, but that love has only exacerbated in the past several weeks. Like I mentioned this morning, I've just had the absolute pleasure to not only meet really lovely folks that have entered the store, but also I managed to, coincidentally, I did not plan this, but I was working at an event where Leanne, Betasamosake Simpson was one of the speakers, and it just brought so much just joy and warmth into that day. And I've just been thinking and mulling over all the beauty that was discussed in that talk, that I just happened to be selling books for the event, and she was one of the speakers, and I was like, oh my God, this is fate. So I just really wanted to run down with you through a list of books that I have read and that have really inspired me and touched my heart, as well as some on this list that I have not read but that I really want to, and that folks have spoken super highly of. So yeah, like I said, I'm not Indigenous by any means, but I just really appreciate those stories and storytellers that convey such gorgeous messages. And I think too, where I'm situated in the Pacific Northwest, I've just kind of grown up with that knowledge, and that only increased when I got to university and working at this bookstore where we do focus a lot on Indigenous voices and authors. And so I've only just been even more exposed than I was previously. And like I said, just encountering these just gorgeous Indigenous scholars and storytellers as of late. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna go through the ones that I have personally read, and then we can discuss some new ones that I have not but really want to. Now, these are all fiction. I think I will, maybe I should have also done non-fic as well. Yeah, maybe I'll do that too, but we'll start with these guys first. So I actually finished Split Tooth, and it was absolutely beautiful. One of the things I love most about these storytellers is the way that they choose to translate a story in a non-traditional way. This book, for example, weaves in poetry and the author's own biography, as well as fiction and myth. Really expands your view and what like literature can be, and the ways that we convey stories and use anything and everything that is available to us, and just how beautiful it can be to kind of run wild and not subscribe to a specific framework or traditionalist way of going about telling a story. So this is a coming of age narrative about a gal who is growing up in Nunavut and coming into motherhood, and her relationship with the land and the natural world around her. And it was just absolutely beautiful. This book in particular too has just beautiful illustrations, which I really loved, and not something you see often. So this is what I'm saying, like, it's just a little bundle of medicine, like I said before, because it's just doing so much, and it brings different emotions up that I don't think a typical narrative necessarily would. And yeah, it just makes for such a special and touching reading experience that to me has really meant a lot recently. So yeah, I loved Split Tooth, so 10 out of 10 would recommend. The next one too that kind of ignited this whole thing again was Nupamang, The Cure for White Ladies. This book was a literal treasure, and I don't know why we haven't heard more buzz around this book, because it's just phenomenal. Leanne Simpson is the author who I just heard them speak recently, and this book centers around a spirit that lies dormant or exists in this ice-covered lake, and their spirit is fractured off into seven different pieces that exist within the urban landscape that is Toronto. And so we see these different spirits. Some are human, some are trees, some are animals. And we see these figures existing and trying to make space in this foreign colonized environment that is so diametrically opposed to their natural environment. And so the way that they try and reclaim and honor their culture by coming together and creating community and not abiding by the... Sorry, I got interrupted by my father. But like I was saying, it was just so inspiring to see how, regardless of the oppression and the erasure that the colonized landscape is trying to enforce on them, they still come together and honor themselves and the natural world around them in just a beautiful way. And another thing too that Leanne Simpson is very purposeful with is the way that she, like, quite literally decolonizes the page and language, because in Indigenous language, the way that life is structured or ordered isn't by the gendering of things, but rather whether something is inanimate or animate. So everyone in the story adopt they, them pronouns, and I just thought that was so cool and just a beautiful way through which to preserve language and change the way we conceive of things. Because like I was saying, some spirits are human and others are part of the natural world, but yet by using this language, we see them as all existing in the same plane, and that is something I find just so beautiful. And seeing that there is no hierarchy and there is no supremacy over one species over another, but they are all in their own sacred space and all play a very crucial and codependent role. So yeah, this book just really touched me. It was just, my only issue is that for the case of both of these, I read them so freaking fast because I was just so immersed in the story, but I wish I could have taken my time. And they're both books that I hope to come back to and that I'm really happy that I own, because I don't think I did them justice by breezing through them the way that I did. But yeah, just absolutely stunning. The next book is actually a short story collection, an anthology written by Indigenous authors from Canada as well as the US, and that is Love After the End. Now, I discovered this particular anthology because I fell in love with Joshua Whitehead, the editor of this anthology. He is an Indigenous writer from Canada, and I saw a talk between him and the manager of a independent bookstore in Montreal called Saint Henri. I will insert their name here. And this was like at the height of the pandemic in 2020. And I visited that bookstore and just completely fell in love with it, as well as the manager. So yes, thank you for the Whitehead introduction. So after I watched that, I literally ran and bought this, an anthology of two-spirited Indigiqueer speculative fiction. Just reading the little blurb here, but all of the stories are in a like sci-fi futuristic setting, but all of the stories have a hopeful ending, because the intention was to highlight Indigenous resilience and hope and moments of joy, because oftentimes we read stories of their plight and sorrows, which are important, but stories of joy and resilience are just as important, right? So I just thought that was really beautiful and such a considered approach to choosing these stories. Yeah, this was a complete joy to read, as well as Joshua Whitehead's novel called Jonny Appleseed, which we don't have in the store at the minute. Hopefully we'll be getting a copy in today, but that's a gorgeous coming of age tale. We follow a young boy who is brought back to the reservation upon the death of his grandmother, and that triggers him to look back on his childhood and being an Indigenous queer man, and the colonial violence and history of Canada. Such a beautiful story, raunchy. There's a lot of explicit sex scenes or talk of sex, and it was just so honest and so genuine, and the light that is Joshua Whitehead really kind of seeped through the pages, and it was just very delectable and just a gorgeous book. So really enjoyed that, but unfortunately I don't have it to hold up here. The next two are actually poetry collections that I have read and absolutely loved. The first one is again by Joshua Whitehead. It's called Full Metal Indigiqueer. Stunning. I don't know how to talk about poetry, so just pick it up, read a couple, see if it touches you, and you let me know what you think. And then the other one is NDN Coping Mechanisms by Billy Ray Belcourt. And he is the author of A History of My Brief Body, which is a nonfiction memoir that I absolutely loved. Again, that's the other nonfiction I should have grabbed to include in this, but I'm just focusing on fiction, I guess. But yes, this is his poetry collection, and it also blew me away. Absolutely stunning. I don't know how to talk about poetry, like I said, so just pick it up, read a couple lines, and see if it speaks to you. So now for the ones that I have not read, but that have been highly spoken of. So actually it's a trilogy, I believe. That is the Marrow Thieves by Cherie Dimaline. Hope I'm saying that correctly. And this is, I think, like sci-fi as well. Just when you think you have nothing left to lose, they come for your dreams. In the world nearly destroyed by global warming, the indigenous people of North America are being hunted for their bone marrow, which carries the key to recovering something the rest of the population has lost, the ability to dream. Frenchie and his companions struggling to survive don't yet know that one of them holds the secret to defeating the Marrow thieves. So yeah, this is supposed to be a really interesting, like, yeah, apocalyptic tale. I believe this is YA. But yeah, one of the profs that I was speaking to teaches this in their class, and just the way that she was speaking about it was super impactful and make me push this up to like #1 on my TBR. And then this is the second similar in the same universe, I believe. So years ago, when plagues and natural disasters killed millions of people, much of the world stopped dreaming. Without dreams, people are haunted, sick, mad, unable to rebuild. The government soon finds that the indigenous people of North America have retained their dreams and ability rumored to be housed in the very marrow of their bones. Soon the residential schools pop up or are reopened across the land to bring the dreamers and harvest their dreams. 17-year-old French lost his family to these schools and has spent the years since heading north with his newfound family. A group of other dreamers who, like him, are trying to build and thrive as a community. But then French wakes up in a pitch black room, locked in alone for the first time in years, and he knows immediately where he is and what it will take to escape. Meanwhile, out in the world, his found family researches for him and dodges new dangers, school recruiters, blood cults, even the land itself. When their paths finally collide, French must decide how far he is willing to go and how many loved ones he is willing to betray in order to survive. This engrossing, action-packed, deftly drawn novel expands on the world of Cherie Dillman's award-winning Marrow Thieves, and it will haunt readers long after they've finished the final page. So this sounds really exciting, and I feel like actually Charlie might enjoy that too. So yeah, those two came highly recommended. And then the other one is Indian Horse. And this is also talks about residential schools, because this story takes place in the 1960s, where residential schools were rampant and alive and well, unfortunately. So Saul Indian Horse has hit bottom. His last binge almost killed him, and now he's a reluctant resident in a treatment center, surrounded by people he's sure will never understand him. But Saul wants peace, and he grudgingly comes to see that he'll find it only through telling his story. Beginning with his childhood on the land, he embarks on a journey back through his life in northern Canada with all its joys and sorrows. Author Richard Wagamese traces the decline of a culture and cultural way with compassion and insight. For Saul, taken forcibly from his family when he's sent to residential school, salvation comes for a while through his incredible gifts as a hockey player. But in the harsh realities of 1960s Canada, he battles racism and the spirit-destroying effects of the cultural alienation and displacement. Indian Horse unfolds against the bleak loneliness of northern Ontario, all the rock, marsh, dog, and cedar. Wagamese writes with spare beauty, penetrating the heart of a remarkable man. Drawing on his great-grandfather's mystical gift of vision, Saul Indian Horse comes to recognize the influence of everyday magic in his own life. In this wise and moving novel, Richard Wagamese shares the gift of magic with readers as well. So I was recommended by this, and I'm so sorry. Whoever recommended this to me, thank you, because they said that this made them cry, and I do love a book that can make me cry. So I'm really excited to read this as well. So yeah, those are a few of the books that came to mind / are on my radar. And yeah, I just wanted to share this because I know can't be the only one that's seeking out these stories and just beautiful gift and magic that these storytellers hold, and we are so lucky to have them among us and to read their stories. Even if we are not the intended audience, I think we can all take away and learn and just develop even more empathy, compassion, and love for each other and the natural world. So sorry if this was super preachy. I don't mean to be all like moonchild, but I don't know. I just think this is an important thing to talk about, especially to, like I said, where I'm situated in this unceded territory. The least I can do is educate myself and just continue my learning as I get older. So anyways, I'm going to open the store now. And I think I'm just gonna wrap this video up here because I feel like I've just been doing a lot of chatter and yeah, we will see each other soon. I hope you enjoyed this. If you've read any of these, please let me know. Oh, another nonfiction one, because I did say that I was gonna speak nonfiction, but now my brain is shutting off. But Braiding Sweetgrass, I'm sure you've heard about that book. I mean, it's my bestseller. I've sold over like 200 copies. That's a gorgeous book that weaves together Indigenous knowledge, scientific research, as well as the author's personal biography, and it is just the most poetic, beautiful, touching story of our world, the natural world around us, how we must preserve, take care of the place that we call home, and much more. I'm not doing that book justice, but I just saw it from the corner of my eye and just wanted to also mention that as well. But anyways, okay, I am done now. Thank you for listening, and here's to some good reading. Bye.